Call the meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. Welcome to the June 16th, 2025 meeting of the Library Commission. This is a hybrid meeting with commissioners, city staff, and members of the public participating in person at the Ariaga Family Recreation Center in accordance with public health guidelines for in-person meetings and the public participating remotely. Commissioners present include Kim Crockett, myself, Michael Herrick, the chair, Carol Orton. Commissioner Sispot is attending remotely tonight through the Just Cause provision of Assembly Bill 2449. Commissioner Sispot, please provide a general description of the circumstances for participating remotely.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. I'm attending remotely because of a physical condition that prevents my in-person attendance, and I really appreciate your understanding today.
Right, thank you, Commissioner Sispot. Scott Schaefer is here, Brian Westcott, and finally Daniel Yule. Staff present include Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhardt, Assistant Library and Community Services Director Nick Shegda, Library and Community Services Supervisor Rose Walton. Nick will be helping facilitate the meeting, and Nick, will you please take a moment and provide some instructions to the commission and members of the public in attendance on how the meeting will proceed.
Thank you, Chair. For members of the public who are attending this meeting virtually and who wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those who are dialing in on a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Members of the public attending remotely who wish to speak, please take a moment to make sure your first and last name are updated on Zoom, or you may provide your name and spelling as you are called to speak. Public comment will be heard in the order received and is limited to 3 minutes in length. For members of the public attending in person, there's some speaker cards available on the table here in front of me. Please complete one and turn it in to me before public comment is called for the item you wish to speak on. There's a large number of public commenters. The time limit may be adjusted by the chair in order to allow everyone a chance to comment. When your turn for online public comment has arrived, staff will unmute you. And with that, I will turn the meeting back to the chair.
Good, that brings us to item C, public comment. And under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Do we have any public comment on items not appearing on the agenda?
If there's anyone who'd like to make public comments on an item not on the agenda, please let staff know now. Seeing no online commenters and no comments in person, you may proceed.
Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item D1, which is community submitted library card art design exhibition with the staff report. We begin this tonight with a presentation from library staff, and LCS Supervisor Rose Walton will make the presentation.
If I can extract myself. This seems like as good a place as any, since we don't have anyone here physically beside our shop. But I can sort of direct my to it around. All right, so in your packets, you have received a report about a proposed project that we are putting forth for this fall and winter season. This is a library card art design, so it's sort of getting the community to design art for our library cards. And exhibiting the art of community designs. Also, and Yeah. So why do this? We would want to do this because it is something that gets the community engaged and gets word about the library out there. Also because our card design is kind of boring. And we've had it for a little while. It's very sedate and it is in the branded colors, which is great. But we would love to be able to represent our community through our library cards. And this is a very, very typical thing that libraries do. Throughout my little presentation here, you can see some examples of other libraries' card art that has been acquired in a similar manner. And so our goal is to solicit art from the community and then to, well, actually, let's move on. Thank you. Next slide, please. So our goal timeline, you can see again, these are some beautiful card art from Oakland Public. The other one was from San Jose Public. Our goal would be to promote this through summer reading, which is going on right now. To accept submissions starting in September and going through October, so having lots of time for submissions, especially if classrooms want to get involved. And to close on October 31st, and then have staff and stakeholders review the submissions. I think the goal would be to exhibit all submissions, but to maybe not say that upfront, to say that we're going to exhibit selected submissions just in case some of the submissions don't fit with the guidelines that we have in place. So we want to be able to decide that ourselves. And I believe that is actually in the submission form to say that their submissions need to comply with the guidelines that we have in place. And then to select a smaller number, depending on what kind of response we get. We have a little wiggle room in terms of that number, but the goal, I think, would be to have at least 3 different card art designs. So something cute by hopefully a little kiddo, and possibly some other things that are a little bit of a higher level, perhaps, of art creation as well. And then we would get them printed. This is fairly standard for the library. Get library cards printed all the time. We need new ones. Print batches of them and then debut them in January, New Year, new card. The next slide, please. Did I? Oh no. I think that I put it on the first slide. What our theme is. We tend to be a little bit wary of themes, but we thought My Library Adventure in Menlo Park seemed like a fun tie-in with our very successful library adventure event, but also a nice way to inspire anyone who is creating the art to tie it back to the city. And so the process, yes, I already said everything that's on this slide. Sorry about that. Process that we look at the things. There's some other nice cards. And then we've got some draft outreach promotion. This is an example of a little card, sort of this big, saying accepting submissions on November 1st through December 31st. Bring us along on your library adventure. Menlo Park Library is refreshing our library cards and inviting community members of all ages to submit original artwork inspired by their library experience. New year, new library card. So that's the pitch. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to.
I'm just curious, 'cause my packet has the submissions as September 1 through October 31, and.
Oh, yes, that we need to adjust. This is inaccurate on this card. Thank you for pointing that out. The what's in your packet and what was on my previous slide is correct. this, needs to be adjusted.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. I will make sure that it gets adjusted. And I think that's all of my little slides.
Yes.
so-
So my computer is being, recalcitrant.
It's okay, my computer's being recalcitrant, so there you go. So if anybody does have questions, I'm happy to take them, or no, I don't want to get in the way of the process. Do we need to open for,
Yeah, hang on.
is it?
Hang on just a second. guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Rose.
Mhm.
Hang on just a second. My computer is doing, things. There we go.
Nick, do we have any public comment on this?
I'm gonna wait just a second because my Zoom actually crashed. So the Zoom on the, computer there is fine. It had crashed earlier. But, now the Zoom here has crashed on my computer, which is actually running the meeting for the public. So there weren't any members of the public in attendance, on the Zoom, but I still would like to, reconnect before we move on. So, let me close.
Can Commissioner Sispot see if there are any attendees currently, or would she not be able to? see
I do
that?
not see any attendees from my side.
Yeah.
So
So.
this is like is up and going, say.
And there aren't any attendees, here in person who have questions, so that's good.
So is the recording still going on?
No, I have lost internet. So.
Is it on the city? It's on the city.
It's on the city, yeah. And,
Should I try to record from my side?
you can, but then I'd have to get the recording from you, so I'd rather just not have to,
Oh, wait.
have to do that.
Sure. Actually, at the top of my Zoom screen, it still says recording with a red circle.
Yeah, but it's possible, the Zoom account is probably still.
I think the Zoom account might be recording, which is good, but I sort of need to, yeah, it's very interesting, sorry, guys.
Technologies pickle up the best of times.
Every time I have, problems with this, I, swear that I'm gonna get a new laptop, and then I'm gonna do.
Let me just try to join, just to verify. Cause if it's still recording, I think you can just see.
Yeah.
That's just little. So,
Commissioner Sispot, if you could just keep an eye on attendees, if you see one pop up, yeah, exactly, interrupt us. Yeah,
Okay,
or.
all right, that's weird. And Sean, if you wanna join, maybe I could make you host just, or a co-host, just in case, so we have a short.
So. I think we've established, Nick, that there is no public comment, so it's like, open it for commission questions or discussion of item D1. Sure.
I don't know, maybe we should run to ask if it's public, but is there a possibility of some sort of like iteration on some of the more popular designs, something like that, or we go, oh, we like this, but maybe if we could change this thing, or the colors don't quite work on the car, or something like that, maybe not for a child, but for.
Right, I was gonna say that's a great question. I think. I think that probably there's nothing to say we couldn't do that, but I suspect that we probably wouldn't do that. I think we will take the designs as they are given to us, but I think that if it struck us that, oh, well, what a great design, but really we would love it if just only we could just show this bit or whatever. I think that would be a case by case conversation with the person who submitted it and whether they were, because they will be, by submitting, they will be allowing us to use that's part of the submission form is They allow us to use their art however we want, but I don't, I think that it would be best practice for us not to change the art without talking to the artist, of course.
Commissioner Sisbot has a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sizzle.
Thank you. I love this project so much. I think this is fantastic. So my question is about on the form. I was really happy that I saw that the artwork should not be AI generated. I think it's really great to have that there. I was just wondering, probably the answer to this is no, but I wanted to check, is there any way to check whether the art was created by AI or there's nothing to do? You just sort of have to take it at face value?
I mean, AI is getting very good at not looking like AI. Sometimes you still count the fingers and stuff, but I think I think there are probably ways to run images back through AI to find out. But I don't know that that's something that we would actually be doing.
Seems kind of like a lot of work.
Yeah,
To screen library card art submissions for AI, but I mean, I think we could have a discussion with the submitter if we suspected.
If we thought, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I have one extra question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just I really like also the timing after September with the goal of getting classrooms involved. And I just wondered if there was any if you guys had thought yet about the plans as to like how to do that or like work with teachers or the librarians of the schools to get the classrooms involved in the submission project.
For sure. We have at this point an outreach list of contacts at the local schools. And so I think that we would start out with an email blast. And if we felt like maybe we weren't getting bites from that, then maybe do a little personal nudging. But yes, at this point that we would be tapping our outreach list.
Thank you.
Commissioner Crawford, did you have a?
Yeah, I just thought, I love this idea too, and I was wondering if, Menlo Park has done that before. And I know a lot of libraries have done it.
This is where I look to Nick, who
No,
has
not in the
a
last,
memory of.
not in the last 32 years.
Yeah.
So,
So, that's
Right.
amazing.
And-
Actually, that's great that
Yeah.
we're doing it now.
Yeah, there have been different iterations of the card over the course of the last many years, but yeah, we haven't,
No.
which, you know, there's a first
Yeah.
time for everything.
And so it just sort of sparked kind of other ideas of how to showcase community artwork with
Yeah.
regards to the library, and this is one way, that's
Yes.
great.
Yes,
Has there been other times where we've done something similar? Where you showcase the community submissions
well,
of artwork? or
Yes.
Things like that in
actually,
maybe different contexts.
great, and in the presentation, which I'm not gonna ask Nick to bring back up because.
Yeah, yeah.
we don't want that drop.
Yeah, we, for a few years, part of our, Black Liberation Month celebration was a, community art, exhibition.
Sure.
And actually, we still have a few pieces of that art hanging in the libraries. I think we've got, I know we have a couple at Alma Street. And I think that yes, I know we also have them in the children's library at Bellhaven. So we do have a precedent for soliciting wonderful community art and displaying it. There may be others that I'm not even thinking of, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think I just would propose that you think about maybe doing it in other ways, so that's an ongoing thing with a rotating exhibitor theme. Each year maybe to kind of in different spaces in the library engage the community.
It very much depends on how much of a response we get from the community about it. And I would actually say one of the similar things to this is actually our poetry exhibition.
Yeah.
Which of course is not visual art, it's
Right, spoken.
spoken and sort of written art. but it's very similar, and that's a huge effort every year, is that push out of getting the things and reaching out to the classrooms and then receiving the submissions and then meeting to, discuss who the featured poets are going to be and putting it into an anthology. These things do build up.
Yeah.
So I am not opposed to having something like this on a more regular basis. It's all about factoring in what are the costs in terms of what do we have staff and time for?
Yep.
I join everyone else, I think it's a wonderful idea, I love it, very excited to see what you'll get.
Me too.
My question relates to a perk, I know that one of the affinity groups, the Menlo Park Library Foundation, they give a special library card to people who donate to the foundation. And so my question is, how and whether and how they might be included in this so that this isn't irrelevant.
Well, those special cards. If you look behind the scenes, they're actually there are 2 barcodes on one account. Now, I would prefer if that rule stays only for that group of people. In terms of if members of the public would like to get one of these cards and trade in their old card, I would rather just replace their old card.
Yeah.
That said, if a member of this group that you're talking about wanted to have both their very special card and also one of these beautifully designed cards, I would say that we should trade out their standard library card number for the new design, and they can keep their special donor card.
I guess I was wondering if there would be a new donor card.
Well, I suppose that could certainly be an aspect of this. But I certainly haven't put thought into how we would choose which design got to be the donor card design, because that design would both have a privilege beyond other designs in the sense that it's special, but it would also be somewhat disadvantaged because it's really only for this small group, and then
Yeah,
members of the public,
right.
who are just standard members of the public would get it. So that, I'm not opposed to it, but I think we need to give it some thought.
I'll bring it up at the foundation meeting so they can discuss it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
For commissioner comments?
Thank you.
So the next 2 items are study session things. The first is discussion about annual recurring library commission activities. Actually, I think it's the chair will be providing a brief introduction to the items. Is that correct, Nick? If you've got your PowerPoint.
I'm gonna try.
And while he's getting the PowerPoint going, I guess I'll ask for a point of order. Dan, borrow your handout. Wave up for people. For item E1, this is pretty much what we're discussing. It's in the packet. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint presentation, but it's sort of a template which former Chair Horton kind of I helped revise a little bit, I think, as we came out of the pandemic and into this current activity. And it's really sort of important, the last agenda item, regular item on our agenda, the sort of annually occurring, it's item G2 today. That we as a commission sort of give our input in the months ahead of time to see how we see how many months working. Fortunately, Nick takes care of a lot of this stuff for us. But I found in my first year on the commission, and sort of briefly as vice chair, now as chair, that there's a lot about just when things happen that makes a difference. So I don't know if we want to wait till the information item. Nick, if I could have some advice about this, but I think it'd be a very good idea to put the agenda item G2 discussion, which is the Library Commission tentative agenda calendar. It's really just an information item. but after the commissioner reports tonight at least, because I know the ad hoc committee probably has information that could affect our discussion of the agenda item. It seems dry, but Nick, do you think we can wait till then to actually?
Sure,
agree with that?
we can adjust that and have the tentative agenda calendar or call the ad hoc committee before the tentative agenda calendar. That's fine.
Okay, and this seems all dry and mundane, but I guess the agenda item E1 is really just going over, there's a lot of stuff that Nick put in the packet, and I was just gonna pull out, if Nick, you wanna go to the next slide, some of the things that are most important, I think, as I sort of saw my first 2 months of agenda formation, because I do that with Nick, and that's what the chair does, so every day, I'm hoping that what Carol's done, I can sort of improve on, and whoever's then vice chair and takes over chair next year can sort of help each of us sort of run the meetings and work with city staff to develop the agendas, so it's, you can't read this very well, this is what's on the website, and it's in the city council policy, this is what we do. Right, we only do 6 things really according to the city council, and we do much more. And I think our first sort of work plan item is basically to be a public sounding board and accept public comment. But really, if you go back and look at the packet and the website, we do 6 things. And then the next slide, Nick. And so I think agenda item E2 and is this. Tonight is the sort of, we start working on next year's work plan. While we're sort of looking at last year's work plan and figuring out how to go forward, but these summer months are very important actually. And I just think it's important that we look at our charge and that we have 10 activities that are in our work plan. And we figure out whether they're aligned. And you know, it's been difficult, I think, this year for me to know, okay, we're advising city council, but we're always talking to staff and what's the role of a commissioner? In doing this, and I noticed that it's very small to read, but I noticed on point 1B that I put out there that when I went and looked at the council's sort of goals for the next year, there are 54 line items in their work plan, and there isn't a single item that has the library and community services department listed. So what I took from that is that department of which we sort of provide public comment input is doing an awesome job, right? Because the city council doesn't have to focus on the library commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission, because everything must be going, well, they're not getting plates community better. So that's what I take in a public way to look at. But I think that makes it very difficult for us to figure out what we're supposed to do, right? What's our work plan next year gonna be? Because we do need to look at those council goals to figure that out. And then the final point really is just. We're doing, I think, great monthly check-ins with staff, but as we look at next year's work plan, which is agenda item E2, which we're going to next, how do we differentiate sort of monthly check-ins with staff, which I think are really important from our work as a commission is to advise council on whatever their priorities are. The next one slide, Nick, and so that was, if you didn't see it, this priority setting workshop that happened in the spring. Again, only 5 bullet points, those are their priorities for this year. So we don't have to, in the library, find a way to do safe routes, but it would certainly behoove us to look at the council priorities as we get into agenda item E2. And then, next one, Nick. So I think as we look at the template, which is in your agenda packet, I think is an attachment, I just sort of waved up there. Thanks to Commissioner Horton, who brought it printed out. There are a couple of things that have sort of fallen off, and I just think if we can have sort of a consent here, if there is an objection, I guess is the main thing we're looking for, is that we've the last 2 years we've had a joint meeting with PRC, and I think next May, or is on the official calendar, we're not planning to do that unless there's a reason for that. And I guess I had a question as I was looking at this. We were doing that largely to fill a work plan item number 10, which is to interact with other departments, but they're in the same department, and then sort of realized, well, that if we want to have that as a work plan goal for next year, then we need to find a different commission, like the housing commission or some commission that is related to a different department potentially. So that was one point. Are there No, I'll wait, we have to wait till the end for discussion, so let me go get through quickly so people can discuss. April, we have on our plan the annual review of department budget. If that's gonna happen, I think we do wanna figure out how. It's gonna happen, because it didn't, we had an issue this year, where it sort of went from March to April to May. And we had our May 28th presentation, but there wasn't really a review, I think, in April, so we need to discuss that, confirm that. And I thought it might be helpful to, in October, have an agenda item that's on this template, where we as a commission confirm our work plan, but really figure out how we're gonna do our work from October to April, because those are really our working months. And I think this past year, I feel like the ad hoc committee kind of marched off and did all that work, but if once we hear from council, you know, these are the 5, 8, 10 items on your work plan, maybe we have an intentional meeting in October, where we say, okay, how are we gonna do this, right? We sort of did that last year, but it was pretty organic. So those are sort of my 3, I guess, points of discussion, which I think we need to ask for public comment first. Nick, are there public comments on this item?
If you'd like to make a comment on item E1, please use that raise hand function and let staff know now. Seeing no public comment online and none here in person.
So it's open for commission, if you have questions or discussion, and I especially welcome thoughts on number 1, 2, 3. 1 in the Microsoft version of Google's slides. Commissioner Yule.
Just because I'm new, what was the purpose of the May joint meeting with PRC, and has that purpose changed, or what's changed that's caused this clear?
Well, I think the joint meetings were focusing on work that overlapped. And a lot of that overlapping work was about originally the naming process for the Belhaven Community Campus. And then sort of running through items leading up to the opening of the campus and program development at the campus. And then sort of looking back on what happened at the campus and how it was going, sorts of things. So that's the idea, is to have those overlapping meetings when there are overlapping issues. And I don't know that we have identified overlapping issues, so I don't know that it was a conscious decision not to have a joint meeting in the upcoming May in 2026. But I do know that we had some other issues on the staff side that sort of peeled off some of those overlapping issues from that joint meeting. So normally we have them as places where we can talk about issues that are of interest and concern for both commission.
Got it, and we have 2 meetings, joint meeting with PRC, right? One in May and one in December, and this is just the May one, we're talking about getting rid of the December one we could keep.
Yeah, the December one is more year in review kind of thing, and that's why we have both commissions together, and it is also an opportunity to sort of get together in December and celebrate everything that both commissions have done.
Are there other?
I mean, I'm glad that we're discussing this now, because I think we do need some increased clarity on work plan and how to execute on it. On the various work plan items that we have for the library commission. And as far as like the joint meetings, I thought that was sort of to kind of help support the work plan of number 3, which is support and advise library program development and operations of the Belhaven Community Campus. And then also another work plan item about periodically reviewing library facing policies and updates with the focus on ones with the shared space operations of the new Belhaven campus. You know, I think that is but you know, it's overlapping with the Parks and Rec Commission with that building and with all of the services, and so we should be working more collaboratively with that. Like, I don't know what the work plan is for the Parks and Rec. Perhaps we should be looking at theirs too. And they should be seeing ours, and we should be finding the synergies to help do this together instead of working in a siloed fashion. So I guess that's not really a question, but more of a comment about how to effectuate that. Maybe Sean and Nick, you could weigh in on that, just so that our commission can actually do more helpful work.
Yeah, I mean. I think the PRC work plan could be of interest to the library commission, but they do have a different charge. Than the library commission's charge, so they are charged with advising the city council on. Programs and facilities, parks and recreation focused, so,
It's just that, I guess my point was that with the new shared facility, it's sort of like we kind of have to, or we should, it seems to me. Work together.
and I think that's the idea behind the joint meetings, is finding those items where. You know, both commissions have items that they are working on, reviewing programs, reviewing policies, and the HCC are good ones. And that's why we have those joint meetings, but for various reasons, this past May's meeting didn't really have those kinds of joint items like we would normally would like them to have, so.
I would just say, I mean, I was one of the people who raised the question of why are we having joint meetings? Because it didn't seem like there was that much overlap once the building was completed in May. And I still think that our focus should be the library. Point well taken, it'd be great if there were things that we needed to coordinate and support each other on, but that hasn't been the case, so, I still question, unless we make a real effort to do that, I think a joint meeting is not that productive.
Yeah, a comment to support that. Have we ever thought instead of a joint meeting, maybe have an occasional kind of a liaison from our, just to report on what we're doing and hear what they're doing? Because meetings are precious. We only have one a month and.
Yeah.
So it's a different approach to, overcoming that. Because I can see the usefulness for instance, going to the housing with all that's going on and having at least a representative to understand the work plan and where we might work together.
And I will just note that currently on our tentative agenda calendar, we do have in July, coming up next month, consider assigning commissioner liaisons to library affinity groups, so that might be, if commissioners want to think about that, it might be an opportunity to volunteer point and reach out.
Right, because I think the affinity group liaisons works well, and so we might extend that concept to some of the other commission. Okay.
Commissioner Yule.
Another question, I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of a liaison or whatever, but I know that I remember at the meeting, maybe this commission, there was discussion about, say, the rules for acrespace maybe at Federal Haven and updating those, and that seems like something that both Parks and Rec and us would want to discuss, but we talked about it separately. So I guess we said at the last joint meeting, there was no really any common discussion aside from the survey that we discussed in brief. But there have been things that both groups care about. Why didn't we talk about that at the joint meeting? And would that have better be served by doing them separately or together or with liaison or what? Yeah, I guess maybe some comments from Nick and Sean about that.
Sure. I think for the makerspace, that had a little bit of time sensitivity to it. We wanted to open it up. And get some programming in there. It had been kind of languishing a little bit because we were focusing on other programs at the HCC. So we just kind of wanted to move that along, which is why we did it sequentially with the two commissions rather than waiting another month to do it at the joint.
I might make a comment or sort of thought that I've observed, because I know last month we were supposed to have, originally maybe we were thinking of having it at the building. campus, the meeting, and then that pulled off, and then we didn't even have the report about the Bellhaven campus of the 1 year, I think. Because there were a lot of other, I'm not sure why it came off, in fact, but maybe, in addition to the Commissioner Westcott's idea of a liaison, that when we have like, we're not saying we should never meet with PRC, but maybe there needs to be a reason that we need to be prepared, and actually, to Commissioner Yule's point, have it work. We can always have an extra meeting, right? If there's something really that would be good to add, it, rather than putting it on the calendar and having this expectation that it will happen and there'll be something to discuss at that point, maybe it's on an as needed basis and not at all. Maybe that we sort of record that it's not that we're rejecting working with PRC, we just want to make the time to go to. Does that make sense to city staff in terms of how we're?
Yes, yes, it does.
And maybe are there comments on, do we need any annually recurring activity in October? We don't have to decide on this, and I think as we get through the summer, and some of the newer commissioners, understand how the work plan gets going. I just remember last year, we kind of did that in September, October, November, but it wasn't sort of an intentional agenda item. Okay, let's all just come prepared to talk about, our schedules for the whole coming 6 months and what aspect of the work plan we should really be focusing on when.
I
As we're talking.
actually have a question about that,
Yeah.
because I did join the commission in last August, and we did do those study sessions, but I wondered who originated the work plan goals? Did this group?
We revised the ones from the year before.
So they're just sort of,
We took.
The iterations of the previous year.
They probably speak better than I can, but we had the ones from the year before, we talked about, do these still make sense? Because a lot of those were focused on Bellhaven and the things that need to be done to get it going and named, et cetera. So it was a discussion process, working on, we added some and we removed some and had discussion about what they were, but. So it's kind of a living thing that gets revised year to year, right?
but it doesn't originate from city council, it's sort of.
No, but they approve it.
They do, but it's not.
And that's one thing I wanted to go in your prior slide, where you made the comment, like, are we aligned with what the city council is in their policy? And I wanna take exception to that interpretation, because we have this work plan
Yes.
and these goals. They can't put everything in a policy. Obviously, the city council wouldn't have a library commission, hopefully. They didn't want us to be doing something, and we have a work plan that they did take a look at, and they took one thing off. So they have affirmed in discussions and in their action at city council that they want us to be working on those things. So,
Commissioner Orr, point very well taken. I totally agree with you that our work is very much aligned with the city council officially, because we are, every year we go through that process. And
right,
when we get to commission, the item E2, I was in discussion with Nick, and I thought it should say, to your point, Crockett, with Commissioner Crockett, that it should be draft the library commission work plan for 2025-26, not prepare updates to, that each summer we take a fresh look at.
Yeah.
Are we just rolling over from last year, or are we really drafting anew? Probably rolling over at least half of them, if not more, but I think the language is
We
important.
carry over because you want.
when you make a
Progress.
decision that you wanna
Right.
keep working,
You
on,
want
Right.
to,
or ask the city council to confirm. that-
instead of reinventing the wheel,
Yeah,
but.
So we don't need to go further with comment. This isn't a vote item, but do we want to talk about budget in the middle?
I was just gonna- don't forget the-
That's okay, number two. Did you comment about that?
It is one of our, on our work plan that the city council approved, that we would be looking at the budget, and to annually review that, but we are out of sync, or somehow we're off schedule with when we meet versus the short time frame between when the city council or when the budget is published. This year it was May 28th. And then they had a study session on June 10th. And they're gonna vote, I think, on the 24th. So there's really no opportunity for us to, if the schedule stays that way, there's no opportunity for us to provide any input or feedback. I don't know, but
So
Commissioner Westcott.
should we put a time clause that says the commission has at least a month to review the budget before it goes public or something like that?
Well, I don't think that's in our power to do that. I mean, that's the city manager and.
Well, we can
city
ask
council.
for it. Yep. And see if
We can
it's
ask
approved.
for, we'll see what the city council says.
Yeah, I would like, I think this is important, because I think we should give city staff a chance to comment right now, but I do think this would rise to the level of, you'll see, I have to say something to city council for at least 3 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, I'm sure, in August. And if this commission felt strongly enough that we should express something to council sort of officially about the calendar they set, and that would be an important thing for us to, let me know between now and August.
Well, I would just like to know realistically from staff how the system works and if this is even a realistic suggestion.
I think it's hard to, I think we are formulating the budget starting in January and February, but it's pretty encoded. I mean, it's not all there yet. And Sean and the team is working towards the timeline for the city council approval of the budget. So I think we have to think about at what point do we break it off and show it to you, and whether that will cause more angst than not, if you see it sort of in the middle of it. That would be some of my worry, is that I show you something that's like sort of really draft and you're like, wait a minute, there's not this and this and this and this. I don't know, Sean, if you wanted to.
But I think it's summed up fairly well, and none of the other commissions weigh in on budget, and really the budget is for the city council to review and set. And members of the public are, of course, invited to that process throughout, including commissioners, and I don't anticipate that the budget would be available for public viewing as early as April at any given fiscal year. I mean, that's not been the case.
Yeah.
Ever, so it may be just kind of need to revisit the expectations around that particular time.
Go ahead, sure.
Well, I was just gonna suggest, I mean, that's my understanding, just seeing how it went this year, is that just the way that it rolls and how, and what staff is doing and presenting and asking city council to do, that I just don't see us inserting ourselves, but so maybe that work plan goal needs to be edited or revised to still provide input, but not tie it to like, we have to see it before, but we could certainly give input if we hear from the community or observe that there's a need for a higher budget for staffing or for remodeling the workspace or the meeting space or something like that, we can give that input, but I don't see us being able to insert ourselves in the process.
I think that's a very good point, and I would even say that, this is where I think the city's whole process would need to change. Palo Alto has a kickoff session, which is like ours in March, I think, way back in November. And so there's sort of there's just a different culture, I think, across the than here within the city government. So I think we as the library commission, I feel like we could do this year is I could point out the libraries like to promote transparency, equity and everything else. And if we, I can make some very, very tame, but I know, and pretty, but noted comments. I think this is unlike the Bellhaven naming session of last year. I would say just the amount of time we spent on this commission this year talking about budget, whether we're gonna talk about the budget, was pretty quite significant. And so I think when we get to the actual creative work plan all summer, we can decide about how we're the budget on there. I wanted to provide the opportunity to talk about the budget issue since it's come up so much, and further comments about that work.
Just given that the scope of the commission is to provide advice to the city council, it might be worth approaching how we interact with the budget as looking at last year's budget and fulfilling the commission need to give advice for the following year, rather than trying to interact with the budget as it is in process, because as discussed, it doesn't sound like that's something that would be particularly productive, given both what the job of the commission is and how that process has to happen on the city end. But we absolutely can look at the budget as it is published and say, we just want to bring this to your attention. Here's something where there might be information that the city could use looking at next year. And that might be a more productive place for us to actually do our job.
You should rock it.
I think that's a great idea, but I would add also that we would need a little bit more, transparency about the division of the library, because the department budget is a vast thing. And the library is a division of it, and it's really hard to see those numbers within that greater budget and how it affects library services and staff and programs and everything. So I think the feedback to city council might be, about how we get a little bit more transparency with that so that we can evaluate and assess and help make recommendations with regard to that with the library.
Sure you.
Would it be possible for us to, way earlier in the budgeting process, like late in the year, maybe this is somewhat what we discussed, like, get input into the budget priorities? Maybe, like, the library staff and say, oh, we're thinking about these things, and we can get some feedback on that or something along those lines. So I don't know if we're necessarily gonna be able to provide a lot of value on like the line items on the budget, right? We're not gonna be able to go through, oh, I don't know, if we need to spend this much on libraries or something like that, right? I don't know if that's necessarily gonna be us. But, and maybe we already do this, and I don't know, because I knew, but, if there's some way of us giving something like that, that'd be a useful thing to do.
Well, I think maybe worth talking about, I guess. I'm cautious about the commission extending the scope of what we interact with sort of back towards the library as opposed to what is our primary purpose, which is to process information from the library and produce advice to the city council. I'm not sure we really have all that much of a role when it comes to how the library manages the library itself and produces information like the budget versus what the city council's priorities are. We said, I'd be curious kind of where the city staff and where the rest of the commission feels that line is. But we only meet once a month and only have so much time to cover everything, so.
I guess I think clarification that, I think what we're all agreeing on is not line item direct, obviously, that's not our goal to interact with city staff in that way. It's great that they provide information to us, but going back to those 6 big priorities, one of them is coordination with other library systems and long-range planning, which I think very much does speak to, do we have enough money in the city to run the library the way we think the residents deserve, right? I mean, there's this town called Abington across the way that doesn't run their own public library, right? It's not part of city government, and I'm not throwing that out there now, so don't staff me, don't say this is a proposal, but I think as a library commission, those are the level of looking at budgets and how much we're spending. I don't think we should become part of the San Mateo system the way that Atherton is, but I think that is the appropriate level of thinking that a commission like this needs to do about budget in order to advise city council, and then that way you're getting totally out of like, oh no, we too many librarians or staff, that level of budget. So maybe that's a way to think about budget, that we're really looking at those macros, which I think the ad hoc committee is starting to really look at, right? Gather data on what are the comparatives, and so we can support the staff better. Okay, so this item went on longer than I thought, but I think we had some good foundational conversation.
I think there's also some overlap really with the.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
And so are we ready to move on? We did ask for public comment, I believe already.
Yes.
Okay, so the next item is a study session to prepare updates to the library commission work plan for the upcoming year. Staff, you could maybe provide a brief introduction first if you'd like, and I'll share my one slide.
Yeah, it's very brief. The commission is tasked to create a work plan each year by the city council. And to have that for their approval in September. So this is the time of year when the commission starts to look at their current work plan and in context of reporting out on the progress on their current work plan to the city council, which is happening in August. But also starting to look into the next work plan. So that's why this item is here. And we provided like a little report card update sort of thing in March or April, I forget. April. Time flies. Just the sort of the status take on where we thought we were on the current items. And I think it's Commissioner Orton or one of the commissioners mentioned in the discussion, last year's Library Commission work plan had 11 items on it, and the city council removed one of the items related to childcare and the childcare, sort of taking a look at the childcare part of. I'm struggling for the word here. And taking review of childcare programs out of the Library Commission's work plan. I think they thought that it was more properly in the purview of the Parks and Rec Commission. I think staff were thinking, early childhood education, sounds like education seems to fit with the Library Commission's purview, so that's why.
Did they put it in the Parks and Rec? Thought it was because there was a outside, first Eric Burmeister's company was.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think that's that was coming in. I never really got the exact reasoning precisely why they removed it. There was some discussion about the review of the childcare programs, you know, in looking towards getting more enrollees in the childcare programs.
Right.
So that's the longer than brief that.
And I'll just add to that, there's a lot of very small text on the screen, that is last year's work plan, and I just want to point out that. We're gonna be discussing next year's work plan for I think the next 3 sessions, probably in some form or another. And it is related to this last year's work plan that I have to report on in August, at the August city council meeting at the end of the month, so Commissioner Orton last year did a brief PowerPoint, and she was able to share in July. I won't be here in July, so I've actually shared my thoughts on last year's work plan, just in this PowerPoint, which I think, Nick Shegda can, I think, distribute probably.
I know, it will, I can print it out after the meeting, and it will
Yeah.
also be in the minutes.
Right, so I don't expect us to discuss all of that, my comments on that here, but I think I will watch the video in July of your discussion of, because that's definitely on July's plan, prepare the report to city council about this past year's work plan. And I slipped it in here just because I think, as Commissioner Crockett pointed out, usually what and Commissioner Orton also, what was last year, but somehow rolls into the next year. So we're doing some stock taking of what we did last year, and then preparing updates in July and August, which I think. Sorry, agenda item G2 that we just said will be at the very end of the meeting. We're probably gonna discuss this some more, right, about the sequence of the summer. So I don't know if we want to open this up now to public comment. Yeah, so.
Sure, we can. At this point, if you would like to make a public comment on item E2, preparing updates to the Library Commission's work plan, please let staff know now. There's no online comment. There's no in-person comment.
And before we open it up for commission questions or discussion, would it be possible, Nick, if we end the PowerPoint and just bring up the work plan as linked from the agenda, we can.
I will
See that,
try.
or if not, yeah, as we open up discussion, we will.
I can try. I will try. Wish me luck. Look at that. It worked very well. So give me a second and I will pull up the word plan.
Probably Master Spot was able to read that, so it's, but at least. Actual screen.
That's okay, I didn't print everything, it just. Sure.
Actually, most of us, I guess, do have it, Nick, so I think
Okay.
we can open it for discussion. Is there a commissioner discussion on item E2 at this point?
Well, I just kick it off by saying I think we need to, the thing about budget number 5 needs to be revised. Right now, it says that we review before presentation to city council. And I just don't think that's realistic. It doesn't work with the way the city or the staff works, so somehow that we need to rewrite that.
Other commissioner comment or discussion at this point?
It'll be all that time, but there it is. Bigger, it's fine. It's smaller.
There we go.
It's also going to be worth reviewing point number 4 as well. Especially following the big like re-roofing project. This is admittedly me going out on a limb here, but I'm guessing there's not a ton of space for capital improvements at this point. Probably worth just looking back over what is realistically in the cards on that.
And I think number 4, we need to talk about, but I think it needs to stay in, and this will tie in with some of our later discussion from the ad hoc subcommittee, library of the future and affinity groups.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that, because actually, I think, Nick, when you gave us, the update, or we discussed a few meetings ago, the update of our work plan progress. I thought that, linked together with the ad hoc subcommittee of our work plan 2 was work plan 4. Analyze and evaluate near-term capital improvement projects for improvement.
Yeah, if I
I
can,
think they were related, or they were under kind of the same ad hoc subcommittee thing. We had a little discussion about
Yeah.
that.
they were, you're recalling, but that jives with my recollection of the discussion of the work plan last year is that there was a discussion about, well, not only should we look at maybe bigger things, but whether it was worthwhile looking at whether there were sort of things that could be done now.
Yeah, sort of.
And I think that's why this is separate, the sort of library of the future, the number 2, and then the 4 one. The number 4, because I remember, Commissioner Westcott inserting the phrase near term into the capital improvement.
Yes.
So that was my recollection of that item, the discussion about
And I do recall in April's note, the ad hoc committee said they would be also looking at terms, so maybe we'll wait till the meeting right here. for the ad hoc committee. But it definitely was just Commissioner Gould and Commissioner Sispach, just so you know, the ad hoc committee started on this very library of the future, just very broad, abstract, long-term at the start of the year, and now they are probably becoming a little more precise in their focus.
But we can put a line in for intermediate or near term. We just don't know necessarily what those are at this point, but, you know, October, I would hope we would have the second or earlier.
But this is this is something we're revising for 25-26, which will get approved by the city council in September, and we'll,
Right.
yeah, finalize it at our August meeting.
Well, if I could make a quick suggestion. Are there any sort of slam dunk items that you think should stay on the work plan for next year? And conversely, are there any items that should be removed from the work plan for next year? Maybe that will help a little bit, and then we can sort of talk about things you want to add or things you want to change. I mean, that's not helpful at all.
No, I mean, I personally think a lot of this still is valid, other than revising the wording of number 5. And maybe putting mid and near and midterm capital improvements on number 4. Which seems to me that number 1 still applies, number 2 still applies, 3.
6 through 10 all seem,
Those are just sort of like, rolling along.
Oh, yeah,
Commissioner Bob.
with regard to number 3, don't know if we focused enough on that, so certainly I feel like it needs to stay. But again, like perhaps we need to consider how, more specific words about what it is that we should be focused on at the, with work plan 3. Program development and operations. I mean, I'm not sure how, as a commission member, I support and advise that, like, what tasks associated with that are we undertaking?
In my understanding of that work plan item, that would be staff come and say, hey, we're thinking about starting a homework center. And here's our ideas about homework center at the campus. So that would be a library program that we were developing, and that would be sort of operations, like instituting a homework center. How do we start it? Who gets in? How do we run it? How do we fund it? And we would bring those things to the commission to get your input on them. So that's how I envision that. And I think we kept it broad because we weren't sure what we were gonna be able to develop, or we were gonna be able to pull off in the first year of operations. And I think we're getting to the point now, touch almost wood, that we are feeling pretty good about kind of day to day. We've been there for a year as far as the library operations there, and now we're starting to look out and see results of the survey, the community survey. Talking to the community and thinking about the sorts of things that we did before, what do we want to do going forward? Staff have written for instance, a grant about telling local history and oral history stories, like recording the local history of the community and running that through the makerspace as a way of sort of kicking off having like a family or local history station that members of the public could come in and use going forward, but sort of using this local history or stories of the Belhaven community to sort of kick off that kind of maker station, makerspace. So that's just an example of the kinds of things that we're thinking about, and the homework center is in there as well as some adult literacy programs that we used to run that we haven't been able to get back up and running after the pandemic.
I would thank you, Nick, because I think that for me, when I read this, and you see me read my fine print, I find that number 3, which is specifically broad stuff about program development, number 6, number 6, which is we're periodically reviewing policies, and number 7, we're periodically receiving staff presentation. I feel like all 3 of those are very broad things, which really fall almost under number 1, which is the point of our commission, right? We facilitate public comment. If there are public present, we provide that public comment to city staff as just sort of our regular business every year. And so in terms of a work plan, what are we gonna drive forward this year? I would almost not maybe take them out, but maybe rearrange to make it clear, yes, that's our basic function. But then in this coming year, the way the city council does, well, they take on 54 new things, we might take on, 2 specific things, and the next point about literacy, it is our function to support literacy programs, and that's gotten lost, I think, and I've actually had some questions about what's going on with literacy in the Belhaven community, especially for TK through 5th grade learners, thanks to the opening of the Belhaven Community Center. And so, I have these questions, but maybe we come up with a literacy target that a commission can really focus on next year, rather than just, program development. And I think Commissioner Sispot, your hand is very small, if you'd like to make a comment.
Yes, I think that's a great point about combining those line items because there are synergies there. One thing I noticed when you were in your discussion of point one, was the emphasis on facilitation of public comment, which I think this commission is doing a great job of. I was just wondering if there's anything also maybe more we could do to encourage the public comment and participation in the commission meetings there was such a robust and wonderful response to the survey, and so much engagement with that. And I would love to hear sort of more of those comments here from a broader group. I don't know if has the commission in the past ever had activities to encourage public comment and participation in the meetings?
Well, thanks for your comment, that's a really good one. Various commissions have at times done it in a different way. I think rather than trying to encourage people to come to this meeting, they've gone out and done sort of like tabling things at farmers markets or in front of the libraries to sort of talk to people out in the public and talk to people as they come into the library or leave the library, just sort of, it's almost like that, peanut sign with the, you see advice 5 cents, except without the 5 cents kind of thing going on, where then, a couple of commission members would do sort of outreach to hear what people were interested in and to talk to them. But I don't remember how we have in the past incentivized, maybe we have really good cookies or something for the public meeting or something to incentivize people to come and comment, but you're right, we did get such a great response from the survey. No, something to think about. I don't know if you have any comments there, Sean.
One question, comment, in the course of the last several months, just looking at other libraries and peer libraries, and we did have a discussion about not having a library mission statement to the library itself, and I'm wondering if that's something that could be a work plan goal, or that we could support that. Not writing it ourselves, of course, but supporting generating that, because I think without a mission, it's hard to, self-check and keep aligned on, goals and things like that. It might be really helpful to the library to have a mission statement.
Yeah, we don't have I think we did an item a couple of months ago about mission and value statements. And I think internally, we're looking at our strategic plan to sort of provide us with the details about what we're striving for the next couple of years. I don't know that we've developed a mission, like a broader kind of aspirational statement. We kind of were focused more on trying to get stuff done.
Sure, but for
So,
the library, do you think it would be helpful to have that kind of guiding set or guiding statement? Because I see it being helpful in other contexts, in other government contexts, as well as, nonprofit and for-profit companies to have that, North Star to help organize and prioritize.
I'd submit that the staff presentation we received this evening may well be an opportunity, because each vision of what should be on the library card may well provide an amazing amount of data and opportunity. We may need an external consulting firm to help us take the images, because it's from all different
Not
ages.
suggesting.
No, but I'm just saying that it would be, I think the most valuable data from our own community, if what Rose spoke about earlier in the evening were very successful, you got, 500 different images submitted by mostly children in the community, but I didn't know if there was an age limit, whether you could be 85, yes. So if that were done well and you brought in that data, just from those images itself, you might be able to come up with start values and mission that we as a commission can take on. I'm not proposing that as the plan, I'm just saying I think to Scott's point, or Mr. Schaefer's point, there's only so much time in the year, whether there are ways, because I agree with you entirely, Commissioner Crockett. I think the library, if the city can't come up with that without a submission, I think the library probably can, because we're fairly, apolitical and offensive, and we can probably come up with some.
Well, just as a
Yeah.
specific to the library.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking, obviously be related very closely to the city.
Yeah,
There may be I'm sorry to interrupt, but there might be an opportunity to look at that when we're looking at, revising the strategic plan, because the strategic plan is due for another look and revision soon. I think when we last revised it, it was for 2 years for, 2024, 25, so we're TikTok on that strategic plan in time to kind of like.
So is that something that would make its way into the work plan, just to provide feedback on that?
On the strategic plan process or on creating a library mission statement
Well, just on the
specifically?
strategic plan process, because I think that is through 26, right?
I think we were planning to do a new one for 26 and 27.
Oh, okay.
Because I think this one covers 24 and 25.
Okay.
and I would submit that to Commissioner Sispot's point, if we're really talking about the vision of the library, sure, we can charge the city staff and come up with some words, but I feel like it's so important to, as our role as a commission, to bring in public comment to what do you want your library to be about? And so I feel like the strategic plan, at least as the report we've seen it so far, is really sort of staff focused goals, like what will the city staff achieve for this library community? Whereas mission and vision, I feel like really has to come from not just us as the representatives of the community, but like to Commissioner Sispot's point, gain as much public comment as possible to get buy-in to that, right? So I think that's why we just draw a distinction between the strategic planning process, that maybe we just come after Mr. Crockett's point, we get a mission statement for value.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that we don't have them.
Yes, and that is the first step.
Maybe
in
it's something
strategic
that
planning.
we could work on supporting.
Yeah. Is there, again, as we introduce this, we'll have the opportunity next month and probably in the month after, I think, before we actually submit our adjusted work plan to the city council for approval, to further comment this evening.
Well, I just have a question on process. So we've had all these comments, but how do we get the next draft without sitting in a meeting and all trying to revise it?
I'm gonna smush it together, it's to the best of my ability, so I was just about to sort of give back what I had been hearing and make sure that I got it right. And I would come back with a draft to then talk about again at the July meeting. For further refinement, and then hopefully after that discussion, vote on it in the August.
Okay.
So what I heard was, change some of the wording around number 5 about the budget goal to sort of reflect the possibilities given structure of the city budget formation. And so I will probably come out, take a hack at it, but I think probably I'll want to come back and hear what you guys think about it. I did hear that you liked, 1 and 2, 6, 7, and 8, but I heard that maybe nestle, numbers, 3, 6, and 7 underneath number 1, sort of like not their own, but 3, 6, and 7 were sort of almost examples of number 1 is kind of what I was hearing the discussion. Let me know if that's wrong or off, too far off there.
I think that's correct, and Commissioner Yule, I think will speak, and I would like to point out maybe for the budget stuff, and then he will salient comment about, is there, as you revise it, maybe try to find a way just temporarily to get it out of the April to June period, and so that we can discuss, review, provide input at a time which is less explosive. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but I want to get that pointed in, we already made it.
No, I know completely different, which is just that, when we move these, if we move these things under, point 1, move 3, 6, 7, One thing that I do like about Fund 3 is this really focus on Bellhaven, that since it's new and is currently sort of still building up its program, building up its place in the community and so on and so forth, that I think it makes sense to make sure we focus on that and to put a real emphasis on making sure that we provide support for that.
And so I think Nick probably 6 and 7 up under, but I completely agree that I think the discussion around Bellhaven was, it needs to be more specific so that we can actually do something as opposed to be here. Supporting the spirit.
I agree, totally, I just think 3 and 6 are actually saying the same things in different ways, so maybe put them together in a more succinct way, or maybe we can do it a little more prescriptive of what it is that we wanna get out of that work plan goal.
Okay, so this is 7 up under number 1, and maybe find a way to sort of bring 3 and 6 together. Take the April out of the budget operation one.
We'll take the word before out.
Annually review, focusing on number 5.
Yeah, I think 5, maybe we're trying to get away from the budget proposal itself, but
Yes.
have a work plan to have a way to focus on the budget in some form.
Right.
And maybe we'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, yeah, I suppose you could just say annual review department budget. Focusing on the potential impacts to library services, and you could, we could say that's at a certain month.
Gotcha.
I don't know what makes most sense.
Okay, well, I can try something.
Commissioner Wexler?
Yeah, I would add, word, it could be library department, because you really would like a more activity-based accounting method.
Library division, I guess, cause
Well, I don't-
that's how it's listed on.
You know, it could be division, but we need the library versus
Right.
the whole.
I mean, cause that's what,
Yeah.
that's our.
Exactly.
Our focus, like,
Yeah.
we just
Good
can't.
point.
And then, so 1 looks good.
Commissioner?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what if we're gonna do 7, that sort of was nestled in number 1, wouldn't 8 also be one? Because that's sort of, our agendas and the monthly schedule is to support the public knowing what we're doing and giving them opportunity to comment, so.
I agree, and I think if we can find, it might be formatting more than the numbering, Nick, so we can make it clear that. I think number, like Commissioner Orton said, number 8 for sure, but then I would say 6 less than, or 7. Is that right? We're ready to receive staff presentations, right? That's just who we are. And so I don't think that has to be a check in the same way we talked about meeting with the PRC. If there's a need, of course, we'll do it. But we don't need to put it, agendize it, so there's a vacant place on the calendar. But I agree with that. We have to have 8 in there every month. We publish it. Just part of who we are being here.
Now, we haven't really talked about number 10, but I heard some discussion a little bit earlier about whether we were actually doing that, or whether the commission was actually accomplishing that goal. What do you think about, and number 9 seems to be pretty non-controversial and usable. Keep that one maybe.
Thank you.
Could we just look at 10 in next month's discussion after the liaison, and that might be how we look, set up the agenda for next month, maybe make sure that the discussion of liaisons come very early, and then the study session on the number 10 will make it become clearer.
Okay. I'll probably have to watch the meeting after this, consider I gotta do it, but Sean, I saw Sean taking notes too, so thank you.
I've been taking notes.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock, so,
I'm going to stop share on this and give you Frank.
so that concludes, agenda item E2, we will, under regular business, the library commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or to consider the action that require library commission approval. And have 1 approving meeting minutes from the April 21, 25 meeting. Nick, do we have public comments on this item, F1?
Any public comment on item F1? Seeing none.
We are open for discussion, first is there discussion on minutes from April 21st?
Did I spell anything wrong or leave anything out? I think is the main.
See no discussion would a commissioner like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from the April 21 meeting.
And do we have a second?
Westcott,
So that we have a motion from Commissioner Ward to approve, Commissioner Westcott to second.
All right, I will perform a roll call vote. Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Horton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sispop, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaver, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Westcott, how do you vote?
yes,
Commissioner Yule, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Herrick, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is to select a commission vice chair for 2025-26. Staff will provide a brief introduction of the item. We will take public comment and then begin our discussion.
So the brief introduction is, our previously selected, vice chair, former Commissioner Hall was not reappointed by the city council, so we now have a vacancy in the vice chair position. How we have done it for the last several years is we choose the longest serving commissioner who has not been vice chair becomes vice chair, and then the following year, the vice chair becomes the chair. It doesn't have to be that way, it's just the way that we've organized it, decided to organize it, and it follows the way that the city council does mayor and vice mayor. So with that, the three longest serving who have not been vice chair are Commissioners Schaefer, Crockett, and Westcott. And that ends the staff presentation unless you have questions for me about the process or how we came up with that rotation.
Can we take public comment on the process and the item itself, if we would like to do that now?
We sure can. If you have any comment you would like to make on item F2, please let staff know now. Seeing no public comment.
Discussion, do we have a volunteer already among the three or?
well, I'll volunteer.
We have a volunteer on the table, but I will not put the motion on to make sure Mr. Crockett.
I want to stress, I still want to stay active in the library of the future, so yes.
That works fine.
And there's nothing precluding the vice chair from doing so. Just for maybe everybody's, to make everybody feel a little bit better, that there aren't a lot of onerous duties as the vice chair. Basically, you run the meeting when the chair isn't here, and that's
Okay.
basically what the vice chair does. They run things in the absence of the chair.
So I move that Commissioner Westcott be appointed vice chair of Library Commission.
We have a second to that motion from Commissioner Washington, Vice Chair.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Shaker seconded the motion. And I guess it's up to you, Nick. Take the vote.
All right, the motion on the floor is to, how do we call it? Select Commissioner Westcott as vice chair, Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Horton, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Commissioner Sispop, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Westcott, you can vote for yourself.
Yes.
Commissioner, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Herrick, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
Everyone look at pictures.
Yeah, so yeah, we forgot to,
Yeah.
before the vote, we gotta say the double whammy. I've got the chair.
Oh,
So moving on, I think we can finish fairly quickly, but I think we said that we would like to take the commissioner reports, section H, before we move back to the informational items. Is that okay, or do you want to get the survey for the statistics out of the way first, Nick?
It's up to you, the statistics,
decision.
Personally, I thought, well, because are you gonna talk about other informational items or just the statistics?
I was gonna briefly talk about the statistics, but basically just very briefly.
Perfect, so let's do item G1 now, if that would be okay, so the informational items are transmitted to the Library Commission and staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. We'll take comment in two parts, I believe, as we're splitting that.
Yes, if anyone would like to make a comment on item G1, please let staff know now.
Do we have a public comment there?
We do not have any public comment.
So are there commissioners who would like to make a comment on the information item G1?
I just had a brief note to say that we are still digging into the results of the program survey, and we will bring it back at a future meeting, sort of broken out a little bit in ways that we hope are useful to the Library Commission, like these were the comments about the library, these were the comments about Bellhaven Library, things like that, so that it might be a little, because it was a little unwieldy. We wanted to make sure you got it, but it was a little unwieldy the way we presented it, so hopefully we'll have something that's a little more interesting at a future meeting.
Would it be possible to, I think I asked at the last meeting whether it's possible to sort of release the raw data set in some way, or does it have to be, is there sort of, there shouldn't be privacy concerns, I don't think, here.
I think we usually sweep through to make sure that any kind of names or identifying things are rejected, and then if we were to release it, we would release it without names, just as comments. I think it's fairly easy to do, to put it, link it on the library website.
Just for entire spreadsheet, sort of spreadsheet. Would. I asked this simply because I'm assuming, I know that the ad hoc committee, when I was serving on it, was talking about the survey and all that data and everything, so I think that would probably be very important to them. If they're going to put that report this summer, just do a little timeline on G1, but if that could be done before our next meeting.
I think we can do that pretty easily. We can put it where we have maybe where we have our questions and responses from the suggestion box page. I don't know if that's a good place to put it, or we could even just put it as like a banner on the library page. There's also the recent survey kind of thing.
So you could send us the link.
Oh.
So I think.
I'm sorry, I was confused. I thought you were thinking about, you wanted it publicly facing.
No, we would like to.
Yeah, if you could do something
Yeah.
like ad hoc, I don't know how the protocol is, whether you have to release to the public at the same time as the commissioners.
I mean, we kind of released it to the public already.
Right.
It's just not in a form that you can necessarily use really well, so that's, it's already been released to the public. Yes, I can get you an Excel spreadsheet of it
That'd be great.
in the next couple of days, no problem.
Okay, great.
And I'll send it to the entire commission.
Great.
And just to be, it would be the whole thing, not just the true text comments, the whole thing.
Oh, yes.
Got it. Okay.
Is there further commission discussion on item G1?
Well, I had a number of questions.
Okay.
You know, if Nick had more, he was gonna say.
No, I'm done.
My first question was, I became aware that, there's a need to replace the sorting machine for $250,000 to $300,000. And I wanted to hear, how that is gonna be funded and where we are in that.
Great. So you are correct. Our automated material handling machine, just called an AMH, is nearing end of life. It's 12-ish years old and started to have problems that they're getting parts for. So we went out and got some quotes for a new one. And while we're at it, we're going to update our security gates, which are also 12 years old at the Elm Street Library. And some of the self-check machines are old. We replaced an ask, to the city council in the budget for $325,000. Is that correct, Sean? Something 325 or 350, which happens to be right about what it's coming in at. I just saw the latest quote, which included 5 years of service on all of the, various pieces of equipment, and it was like $327,000. So we have in the budget proposal sufficient funds to replace that AMH machine and also some other technology, cell-chat technology that's getting to the end of life. So the plan is to use the funds when the budget is approved to get that done, and if there's any discrepancy or delta between them, either find them from somewhere else in the budget or ask either the Friends of the Library or the Library Foundation to make up the delta, which doesn't look like it's going to be a significant amount of money.
Great, thank you. And I have like 3 or 4 questions, so anybody else jump in if you want. In a prior meeting, you had told us about a grant request that you were being filed to do a history project, or video or wall at Valhaven. And I wondered, if you could tell us what the status of that is.
Right, so I name checked it a little bit earlier in this meeting. What did we call it? Belhaven Stories, I think.
The local history digitization, oral history project.
So that's what we were proposing to do, and we wrote a grant to the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, IMLS, which is sort of being funded right now by the federal government, so we figured that one was gone. But we are planning to take that proposal, and the grant was a $25,000 grant to do the things that I had talked about earlier, capture local and family histories, but also for the Belhaven neighborhood, but also to set up kind of a station where families could in the future come in, digitize their photographs and things and have that for themselves as a way to sort of preserve those mementos and that history. Also an exhibition of those things that we would put on, and also we would be facilitating that with like a professional photographer and some other things, some professional work. I think the grant was for $25,000. So if not receiving that money through the state library, through IMLS, we're probably going to go to the Library Foundation and ask them
Okay,
to support that project.
so to make sure it hadn't dropped off.
It has not dropped.
Okay,
You just haven't got the ask yet on that,
Okay.
in your foundation.
then I had another question in the PowerPoint that we had in April, which was attached to your minutes. It has a list of all the presentations that we'd be getting. And the one that was gonna be for June was Library of the Future, what's next for libraries and for Menlo Park Library. But I know instead we got a presentation on this community card, which is great, but are we gonna get this?
Yes.
What's next presentation and what
Yes,
does that mean?
the what's next presentation is coming. We hadn't gotten it together. I think if you think back, we had originally, we were going to do collection development first and then the Library of the Future. And now we basically going to swap those and do collection development and then Library of the Future. And it's just that the staff haven't had time to finish that particular one. So coming, still working on it.
Okay, I don't see it on the upcoming agenda, so I'm just.
It went down to unscheduled, but that's because I didn't want to nail them down to a July or August date until I knew they were absolutely gonna be able to pull it off.
Could
In July or
we
August.
try for July, just because with our report?
We can try, yes. We can try.
Can I propose if it doesn't work, that maybe, because I understand from having on the ad hoc committee, it's been challenging sometimes to try to coordinate. We can't push the staff, and I would hate to think that the staff are ruining their summer working with collection development and Library of the Future because it's too much. So I guess, yeah, it seems to me that collection development could probably wait more than Library of the Future. Is that correct, commissioners?
Yeah, I was really hoping that we would hear what they had to say about library of the future before they wrote our report.
We will try.
Great.
We will try.
And if it-
I think it's easier to write a collection development report than just to write a library of the future, report. That's what's kind of hanging them up. And that's what's hanging them up. So I will talk to Rose and the team and see if we can get it ready for July.
Okay. Thank you very much. I had some other comments, but they can wait till we look at our tentative agenda schedule.
So, I'm a little lost in it, but I don't think we have any further discussion. We're skipping G2. So I believe we're ready for, item H1. Maybe report out for the ad hoc subcommittee commission, because this, commission Crockett, Gordon, and Westcott.
And let me, I apologize for not having this attachment included with the packet. I was mentioning to Commissioner Westcott before we began that, we were having all kinds of issues on Thursday when we were putting the packet together, and this got inadvertently left out. So, on the screen now is the attachment that was supposed to be in the packet and which will go out as part of the minutes.
Well, I'll kick it off for the three of us, but we've all three been equally involved in what's on this chart, but. As a preface, I can say that after our last meeting and seeing the, the abbreviated, budget schedule. We all have this sense of urgency that, understanding. What was possible and what the city council, had or did not have as their priority, so, at the first part of this chart, we just kind of listed off a very brief summary of what's already been done. We've done site visits of 7 local libraries. There have been some focus groups conducted with the affinity groups, the Friends of the Library, the foundation. I know Scott Schaefer and the chair, Rick O'Hare, did a literature review and reported on that at the April meeting. And then since our last meeting, we decided that we wanted to just have some personal conversations with as many city council members as we could, just to kind of tell them what the library commission and the ad hoc subcommittee was up to and get some feedback and talk about what was realistic and not realistic. And we were able to meet with Commissioner Weiss, who's our library liaison and former library commission member. And the only one we were not able to get a meeting with was Cecilia Taylor. So as part of that, there was a lot of brainstorming and just education of us and them about what's going on, what's possible, what's realistic, given all the other priorities and time consuming things that are going on in our city. So I thought it was very helpful. And I'll let Brian and Kim chime in more, but basically, we, after that, sat down and made a list of everything we need to accomplish and then I tried to tie it together with what is on the annually occurring activities and our tentative agenda schedule and make sure that we didn't forget anything, but we want to be sure to bring the affinity groups in, let them know what's going on both with the commission and the ad hoc subcommittee and some of the feedback we got from city council members. And what it became clear as we went along, the importance of all of these different people who are on team library to be sharing information and coordinating and working toward a common goal. Will this get sent out to everybody so they can see, or will they have to go look at the minutes, or?
I can send it out to the commission as well with my survey results.
I think that the dates on there are still correct at the time we, I guess, I could revise it and you could send it out because at the second page, if you move to the next one, we were talking about, well, how are we gonna finish all this by the time that, so Michael can think about what he wants to put in the report, Commissioner Chair Herrick.
I only have this from what?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, there's.
That's right. And the last item that we put September, because we thought that might be when, our chair would present, the report on the 24-25 work plan, but it's now gonna be August 26th. So we need to, back it all out so that there's time for that. But to the extent we could get the, survey results, you know, later this week, that would be very helpful to us. We'll be working on all this. And I'm gonna pass it to, with that introduction, pass it to Brian.
Well, I just wanna point out, I think this is well summarized and you've got this in your packet, but the key date is. We need the full commission to help us out. We're gonna try to have a draft done by August 13th, and it's a fairly short time where we would meet. On the 18th, because Carol has it in the packet. So that's something to keep in mind, that we would really need your support. In that 5-day period to, you know, look over the report and be ready to participate in the discussion.
And I would also add that we're continuing, you know, our efforts to really engage the community, particularly teens, as well as some other groups that, you know, we can get feedback from. Just as we have with the affinity groups, and continue getting as much of that as possible at the same time as pulling together and summarizing what we've learned and the conversations we've had with city council members, as well as other peer libraries, what we've seen, and the data that's come in from the department surveys, and how it all kind of, there's themes, and there's generally a lot of enthusiasm actually from the city council members, which was really very inspiring and motivating. Because they really, I mean, one personal takeaway, I was struck by how much they really wanted to see more action. And I think it was, you know, Mayor Combs who was talking about analysis and paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, I don't know. But there's sort of, you get the feeling like we need to really make some actionable recommendations, and really everyone wants to see the library kind of elevated in the community, especially with everything going on in the middle field corridor and downtown. The library can play a very key role, and should, as a community service and an information learning center and a community hub. And a lot of excitement around that. Which I'm not sure, I mean, it's sort of a bright light in a lot of the city councils, very difficult conversations that they have to have with, you know, what's going on. So I just want to pass that on to the group, because it is something that people really want to see things happen.
Yeah, well said, and I would just add a layer to that, which is, it was clear in talking to the different city council members separately, that all of them know that at some point in the future, something needs to be done with this older facility, and the whole civic center campus part needs to be looked at. Right now is not the time, but that doesn't mean that there aren't shorter term things that can be done to be responsive to some of the feedback from the community survey. And so this is where we have been really feeling like it's important to coordinate resources that the city council might chip in, and the Friends of the Library has quite a reserve, not as large, but the foundation also has funds, so if we can all focus on short to midterm, which is in our work plan, and like brainstorm together on how we can improve things while also preparing for what we know are gonna be an influx of more residents in the area that Kim mentioned.
Yeah, and I also would add that there was, a reaction about trying to be proactive for planning, in terms of all these new families and residents coming into that Middlefield corridor and the downtown area. That's gonna be, there are so many unknowns, but there are some knowns, and those developments are going to happen, and it's going to affect the civic center and the library, and the library should be able to help in that and take an active role in the growth of the community.
And in fact, several city council members said that they thought it would be a good idea to have a city council study session on that topic, on how to prepare for future, how the library could be responsive and ready for what's gonna be coming.
Yeah.
And what to do now to better serve community, so something to they brought up that was their idea.
That was,
Are we ready for Commissioner comments? Do we make public comment on these reports? I don't believe we do. Yeah. Yes. So, are there other commissioners who want to have some thoughts, but if other commissioners want to jump in with questions or comments?
I just have a quick note that the report out on the current work plan is scheduled, I believe, for mid-August.
I thought it was August 26th.
26th, okay, that sounds good.
That's what you have on your
Online, and then
Somewhere.
September, mid-September. Well, those are all tentative because they do slide given what the council, I don't think the September one will slide because that is usually a consent item where they're approving the work plans for the all commissions for the coming year. But the August one, the report out one might slide and it would probably slide back, not forward.
Yeah, could we make that request that when you were talking to?
I never really see
Judy
them
Hare.
slide most of the things, they're trying to move things off the agenda, not pile things onto the agenda to
Yeah.
make forward.
Yeah, sliding into early September, I think.
Yes, that's possible, yeah.
So my only comment was that just listen, when I didn't mention it during our study session on the work plan for next year, but downtown vibrancy is one of the 5 goals. And so that was the obvious one I thought we could
Yeah.
look into with everything you're talking about. And then Commissioner Crockett, when you were talking about, housing going in just this side and the fact that, I am always escorting 6-year-old from here to downtown proper. Safe Routes is part of that as well. If you think about the library is the community hub that you can walk to all these places. And so I think we totally tie into 3 of the 5. If we were to go forward and really focus on downtown vibrancy and consider the library as part of that. Right. Great, okay, so it's 8:30, I don't want to, Commissioner, you all.
What makes this formula goes directly into our work plan, like to parrot some of the language of the city council's things, so that we sound really good when we go to present it, and they go check it.
I think that would be wonderful by the Chair Westcott to work on the July meeting. The tweaking of all of that.
We'll make you proud.
And I think we have an opportunity here, and I have to then come up with the language, like you say, I'm sure you will to present to the council.
When there's a point, when do you leave for July?
June 29th. I'm available on my email.
Okay.
And I will reach out and set up an agenda meeting, you and I, vice chair, so that we have some time to sort of talk about. these
Okay.
things.
All right.
Yeah, I think there's actually a date that, and that would be great, and grateful to talk in hand about. So are there further comments on page 1, or are there any, would any commissioner like to make a short report out on any other items of just the entire commission, agenda item H2? Right.
Do you want to give a report out about the Friends, Kim?
well, I unfortunately missed the Friends annual meeting on Monday. However, I did speak with Steve Haas today to catch up on, what they were discussing and, I can pass on, what they talked about, mostly, he said the annual meeting really was about electing new board members, so it wasn't so much regular business for the Friends, but a larger meeting about the governing of the future for the Friends. And I think Nick, you were there, of course, and you're probably better able to tell the commission what you talked about with the Friends, and some of the updates that you shared and the discussion, because unfortunately it wasn't there. But I am going to be at the July 14th quarterly meeting, and I did share with the Friends, the update we just talked about from our ad hoc subcommittee, and also what all else we're doing in the commission. And so our next meeting in July, we're going to discuss that further. But
Well, very briefly, the Friends are doing well as far as their fundraising goes. Their sales are pretty much back to where they were before the pandemic, which is very encouraging. They have a pretty healthy reserve, and they were talking to me as the library representative about asking us to sort of come to them with ideas for things that they could fund. So Sean and I have had some preliminary discussions about that. We'll probably talk about that as a staff team through the summer and bring something back to the Friends. But it may involve some of the other groups as well, or other affiliate groups. So we're gonna take a little time to talk about it before we bring some new ideas on people. What else? There's good food. But yeah, the annual meeting was primarily the election of board members and board officers for the coming.
Okay, and I'm the rep for the Menlo Park Library Foundation. The working meeting, which we just had last Thursday. And their monthly meeting is next Thursday, so we're off schedule, but I'll be also bringing them, I gave them a brief overview of what Library Commission and work subcommittee are doing. And I would say the foundation is anxious to hear more about what's going on with library and plan for the future, so they can have more than just the seed library and the poetry, youth poetry to have to inspire people to continue to donate. So more that we can coordinate with some of these exciting ideas and whatever, I think that will be helpful. And they are also working on George Sisbot's idea, and we've been trading designs for new book bags, kind of like this one I brought to show you. This book bag with our logo, etc. So they're looking to update that and figure out ways to make a lot more of them, so more people get them with the library advertising them.
Great. Are there further comments on commissioner reports? No, we can move back to the final agenda item, which is G2, which we passed over, the Library Commission tentative agenda calendar, which was published in the agenda. Nick, do you have any public comment on this item? See.
If you have public comment on item G2, please let staff know now. Seeing no comment.
And I think we'll open this up to commissioners. I think some people took notes perhaps on what we need to record that got changed, if not in the current one. Commissioner Orton, do you have for June?
Well, the main thing I would like to see the update to the work plan that we started on tonight for 25-26, that we add that also to the July agenda. Rather than skipping a month and bringing it back up again in August. So that in the July meeting, we talk both about a report out, what the report out on 24-25 is, plus another look at the revisions to the 25-26.
I think I also read that you would like to see the library of the future presentation, if at all possible, in July.
Yes, if possible. And if there's a way to have you have the analysis and crosstabs of the survey in August. I suppose if you give us the raw data sooner, but we were hoping to see that also sooner than August.
Should try.
But we'll take what we can get.
And could I suggest on that too, as you work with Rose and their staff, maybe this isn't the final opportunity, I mean, it can be a dialogue, I think, in the sense that we would love to hear from staff, I think the ad hoc committee especially, but it doesn't mean they couldn't come back in November once they've seen the report from the commission and the council has weighed in and stuff, maybe there's an even bigger report on library of the future from the staff perspective, late fall meeting, that might take some of the pressure off of getting comment in July. Were those
Those were.
the ones, okay, I think, were there any other comments on the whole yearly, agenda? Just, it comes up every month, so an opportunity in future months to comment. And
I just have a comment, I think I heard earlier discussion about the ad hoc subcommittee producing a draft report on August 15th for the commission to review in advance of the August meeting. And so I just want to know that we would need to publish that as a release staff report. Some of the ground acts like that, more information would need to be released to the public. So just kind of a note that if that report's gonna go out ahead of the regular agenda, that we need to publish it as a release staff report.
okay, what date was
I
that?
think,
I think I counted that in.
I think what Carol was trying to say was that they were trying to make the deadline of the staff publishing date, the Thursday date for the Monday. For the
Yeah,
Monday meeting, not that they wanted to publish it early, but that they wanted to make sure that they got it in to staff so that it
Yeah.
could go out as part of the regular packet.
that's what I meant.
Right.
I was just trying, I was counting back to the Thursday before our Monday meetings that we got it to Nick before, so it could go in the packet.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Okay, are there any further comments? Those at 8:37, the meeting is adjourned. You can all be in the dark mode of mine. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, commissioners as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. And I was so happy about the update about the Menlo Park Library Foundation. I'm just so grateful for their work they're doing.
Brian's son.
I will. Thank you.